Today, we wanted to make a video about how I was able to go 8% faster and get the buckle.
A few weeks ago, I finished the Marji Gesick 100-mile mountain bike race in 11 hours and 50 minutes, becoming, along with Kait, Boyle, and Kristy McBride, one of the first 3 women to break the 12-hour barrier in this infamously difficult race. In 2024, I finished the Marji in 12 hours and 57 minutes, meaning I had to go 57 minutes faster this year, something that felt like an impossible task at many points over the intervening year. However, with a few tweaks, a lot of hard work, and a little race day magic, the impossible became reality. Today, we're gonna break down how we got here. If you haven't watched the race video, well, I've just completely spoiled the ending, but I still recommend watching that first. Alright, let's get stuck into it.
A lot of things went into this. This might be kind of a long video, but we wanted to put it all out there in one place.
With the hopes that this could help somebody else who's trying to have a faster time at the Marji or really at any event. Just sort of talk through the changes that we made, how we thought about it.
I have organized this into a few different categories. We have an outline, which is a first for us, I think, for a video. We're gonna talk about training, we're gonna talk about bike setup, we're gonna talk about what I did leading up to the race and what I did during the race. Before we dive into all of that, I do wanna address a few things that I've put in a intangibles category. And I don't wanna spend a ton of time on these things because they are not things that are replicable by someone else, but I do think it would be disingenuous to not say that these things had an impact in me going faster.
Yeah, seems reasonable.
One of them was there were some course changes at Marji Gesick this year. There was one in particular, and they didn't change this to make the course easier. If you've done this race, you know they don't do that. There were some issues with using a downhill trail going up during the race, so they used a climbing trail instead. That was definitely a little bit faster. There were some course changes later on where there were switchbacks where there had been a straight down section. That probably was a little slower. I think net, this was probably 5 minutes, 5-minute course change. It's really hard to say, to put an exact number on it. We did look at the times for the men who had done well last year and this year, and they were about
5 and 8 minutes faster.
That's both the course changes and point number 2 in this category, which was the weather was exquisite. It was perfect racing temperatures. The high was maybe 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, the weather was pretty good last year too. It was hotter last year, but I didn't have the chafing that I had last year. I think things were just like a little bit more comfortable. I had a little wiggle room when I had that issue with my pack and wasn't able to hydrate properly because it just wasn't hot. Course conditions were really nice. So I think we can probably attribute something in the 5 to 8 minute range to course changes and weather alone. I do think it would have still been possible for me to go under 12 hours and get the buckle without that, but it would have been a lot tighter and probably a little bit more stressful.
Certainly would have been more stressful for me. It was already extremely stressful for me.
Well, that's because I'm bad at math, which is something we're going to discuss later. The other aspect was the fact that I was able to work with other women who were racing, specifically Kait and Julie, during the race to kind of share that mental load. That is hard to put a number on. It's hard to quantify. I know it made it more fun, and fun is usually faster. Again, I think that was a very special circumstance. That said, I do think if you're trying to go fast at Marji Gesick, like you could do worse than find someone to work with, whether that's maybe midway through the race, just kind of going, hey, like we've been together all day, like let's take turns leading or something like that, or doing this race with a friend. But again, that's kind of unquantifiable. So we're not gonna spend the bulk of the video on that. However, I do think it was very helpful. So basically, those are my disclaimers. The weather was good, the course was a smidge faster, and I had people to work with. The first big topic we want to discuss is the changes that I made in my training from 2024 to 2025. From a type of training perspective, I would not say that I did anything markedly different. With training in general, it's cumulative. So you want to be making incremental increases year over year. For the past 4 years since I was coming off my injury, my focus with Coach Mike has been increasing aerobic capacity and basically being able to go uphill faster. Because I already had the bike skills portion from racing enduro for 7 years. So the focus has been very much increasing time spent at a high percentage of functional threshold power, which really is the magic for Marji Gesick, because it's 12 hours, 11 hours and 50 minutes. I don't think my FTP changed much from September of 2024 to September of 2025. However, I do think I really increased the percentage of FTP that I could hold for that long a period of time.
FTP, like what you can theoretically hold for an hour, didn't necessarily change, but her ability to get closer to that number for an extended period of time increased. How about you give some specific numbers? That's what people want to hear.
In 2024, last year, from January 1st to Marji Gesick, I had ridden 4,053 miles, climbed 405,394 feet over 402 hours, which works out to an average of about 11 hours a week. In 2025, I rode 4,493 miles, so almost 500 miles more. 526,607 feet of elevation gain, which is a pretty significant increase. Largely credit that to Europe. Thank you, Apeninica. And 465 hours. Averaged out to a little under 14 hours a week for that time period. I also went through and looked at how many big weeks I had each year, because I actually think that's a better picture of our training than the average. In 2024, I had 6 weeks that were over 15 hours a week in that time period, not counting the Marji Gesick week. This year, I had 9 weeks over 15 hours a week. That's both an increase in miles and an increase in the amount of volume I can do in 1 week and recover well from that. We didn't really change the type of training that I was doing. Marji Gesick was not the only event I did this year. I did Apeninica in Italy, which was a stage race with a massive amount of climbing. I did Breck Epic, which was a stage race with a massive amount of climbing. So really, up until Breck, the focus was climb, 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 climb.
Generally fairly long climbs compared to Marji.
Significantly longer climbs compared to Marji. A lot of pro racers like us are very used to doing an hour-long climb and a 20-minute descent. That's kind of our comfort zone. I know that's Kait's comfort zone.
Even a 20-minute climb and a 3-minute descent.
As opposed to 100 3-minute climbs all day.
Yeah.
We talked about this last year. I think this is why we were able to come into Marji Gesick our first year in 2024 and do reasonably well, which is that we train on the mountain bike a lot. We have, by Western standards, pretty punchy trails around here. We have a lot of techie rocks. We have a lot of techie climbing. I would say it is something that suits me pretty well. I don't know if that's just because of where we live or from racing enduro. Maybe it's because I grew up in the Midwest. I don't know. The other thing that we do a lot of is gym work. Again, I don't think I changed anything significant from last year to this year. Other than that, I spent a lot of time this winter working on core strength, which I think is huge for this kind of race. I think that was helpful. I did also, in the weeks before Marji Gesick, specifically add in some hamstring and adductor strength to just try not to cramp. Cramping tends to come from muscular fatigue more than electrolytes or anything. There was only so much that we could replicate the stresses of Marji Gesick here, and when you suddenly do a lot more punchy climbing than you're used to when you're at sea level, so you're doing higher watts than you're used to because it feels fine, often results in cramping. I was pretty pleased that I did not cramp until about hour 10 this time around, maybe like 9:45, whereas last year I had massive leg seizing cramps at 2.5 hours. Obviously got over and was fine, but I was really happy to avoid that. I also did the 12-hour test event. Again, I had done that in 2024 as well. Both years, it's kind of been a hot mess, which makes me really discouraged and concerned. And then I don't have the same problems at Marji Gesick, so I don't really know. I don't know what to take from that.
You assume it's going to feel as terrible as it does, and then when it doesn't, you're happy, and then you go faster.
Has been beneficial to have that big of a event in the legs. That said, the 12 Hours Enchanted Forest, amazing event. The course this year could not have been more different than Marji Gesick. I did 138 miles in 11 and a half hours as opposed to 106 in 1150. Chapter 2, bike setup. A lot of this is going to be a repeat of what was in our pre-race video, but now we have the benefit of hindsight and knowing what was and wasn't actually helpful.
And that it actually worked.
One of the things I did was a hot wax on my chain.
This year, Squirt launched their new hot wax, a chain lube that you melt. It is wax, you dunk your chain in it, you like shake it around. We had never really used hot wax before. Lots of people have talked about it, etc. It seemed like a lot of work. We were like, I don't know if it's worth the work. The benefits are that it lasts a lot longer. So normally with Squirt Lube, we will relube the chain every 3 to 4 riding hours. Whereas with the hot wax, we did not have to do anything with Sid's chain for the entire Marji Gesick race.
And it was great. I didn't get any chain squeaking. Something else squeaked the whole time, as people have noticed in the video, but it wasn't the chain. I really loved this for the long events. We still use the normal Squirt Lube for daily training, shorter rides, shorter races, simply because it's easier. But I definitely think I will do this for any event over 6 hours going forward, because why?
Yeah.
Why
not?
Yeah, why not?
And if you are one of those people who prefers one-time maintenance tasks, like to do something one time and then not have to do it again for a while, I think Squirt's hot wax would be a great option for you because it is a certain amount of work one time, but then based on their testing, if you're mostly riding on like road and gravel, it'll last between 800 and 1,000 kilometers. A couple other things that are really nice about Squirt's hot wax is it is more efficient more quickly than other hot waxes. You take it out, you like run it through your hand one time, put it on the bike. In 5 minutes, it's at 97% efficiency. And in 30 minutes, it's reached its full efficiency, which I believe is 97 or 98%. And then the final thing is that like all of Squirt's products, it is biodegradable. We are riding out in nature and you are losing bits of wax from your chain as you ride. And so to make sure that it's biodegradable and not gonna hurt anything is awesome. If you would like to check out Squirt's hot wax, you can head to sidandmacky.com/hotwax and use the code SidandMackyWax for 15% off.
Overall bike setup, I will say I changed a lot of things on my bike this year. I don't think any of them were like the single driving factor for going faster.
Very rarely do you have one change that makes a huge difference. It's usually a lot of small things.
And I do think that's why we spent the time with the hot wax though, because it was one change that did make a difference because I didn't have to stop and lube my chain. Last year I raced the Signal Peak 2.0. This year I raced the RE Signal Peak 3.0. There were a few different changes to that bike, which I think we have an entire video on. I love this bike. It is fantastic. It's a little bit, actually it's fairly significantly lighter. The frame weight is fairly significantly lighter than the 2.0. It's a little stiffer, a little bit better power transfer. The overall weight gets offset by a next few changes that we're going to talk about. So I don't think my bike was significantly lighter this year to last year.
About the same.
Probably about the same.
Yeah.
I went from the mechanical XTR to the electronic wireless Shimano XTR. We have loved this system. It's been fantastic. I was a big doubter about electronic shifting in general because I am a Luddite, as we have discussed many times on this channel.
Sid really was like, she was like, why should I put this on? I don't like...
Okay, to clarify, we put it on like the day before I flew to Italy. And I was very stressed about that because I was going to Italy by myself. Mackie met me later there to help support for the race, but that meant it had to survive the plane trip and still work on the other side, and I had basically used it for one ride before that, and it was flawless and it was great. So that was really trial by fire there. The battery life lasts way longer than you need for a 12-hour race, so no issues or concerns there. The electronic shifting is easier on your thumb. Does that make a difference in a 20-minute race? No. Does it make a difference over 12 hours in how fast you go? Probably not, but it might increase comfort.
It might decrease fatigue, which like when you're riding for that long, every small amount of fatigue adds up and compounds.
And that's what makes this discussion kind of hard, to be honest, because I went an hour and 7 minutes faster, and that came from so many different little things. And one of those was just reducing fatigue in the system in every way possible.
Yeah.
And I think another way of reducing fatigue was the fork that I have been running on my bike this entire year, which is the Fox 34 SL in 130 millimeters. So that's 10 more millimeters of suspension than I had last year. It's not a huge difference. I think mostly I just love the way that that fork feels compared to the step cast that I had last year. It is just butter. I'm not the athlete that anyone wants to test their suspension because I'm like, oh, it feels bad. And that's because I have it locked out. That's what it usually takes for me to notice that something feels bad. This one we put on and rode for the first time in Phoenix at the Fox Recon event. I felt it immediately and was like, I love this fork. I want to keep it at 130. We did a lot of races this year where I did not need 130 millimeters of suspension, but I still, I liked it. It doesn't really add weight.
Yeah, it weighs the same at 130 as it does at 120. Actually, technically, it's very slightly lighter at 130. So for us, there was no downside to keeping it at 130 millimeters.
Last year, my hands were numb for 2 days after Marji Gesick.
Hands numb, feet numb. Still.
I didn't have that at all. I think I had one finger that was a little numb. That could be fork related. It could be shifting related. A few things that were the same. I did a 30-tooth chain ring. I did the Expedo Baldwin pedals. The Baldwins are a thing that I put on specifically for Marji Gesick because I have a tendency to have foot pain in these longer events, and having a little more platform helps. I didn't have any foot pain. My feet were not numb this year. Last year they were numb. Same pedals. Same shoes, don't know. But I rode my bike for an hour and 7 minutes less, so that might be it. Marji Gesick specific thing here, same token pouch as last year. This year we put it on the stem because I was swapping packs, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. Same tires as last year, Maxxis Aspens, 2.4 max speed compound in a 120 TPI. I debated the Aspen ST on the back. I think from a technical riding perspective, it would have been fine. I was just worried about flatting it. MACKY assures me it's the same casing as the other one, but I don't know. I did do inserts front and rear, whereas last year I only did an insert in the rear. That's just due to my trauma with flat tires over the course of the year. I really didn't want a front flat, okay? And I ran more tire pressure.
You did increase your rear tire pressure slightly.
Yeah, so I think that covers the bike changes. The big thing was that I got to Marquette earlier than we did last year. I got there about 10, 11 days before the race with kind of the idea of being able to pre-ride a lot more. It ended up raining quite a bit when we got there, and I also was tapering for this effort, so I didn't quite pre-ride as much as I wanted to. I really had it in my head of I'm going to be there in time to ride everything. I was not. Both from having done the race last year and from pre-riding, I had a much better mental map of how the entire race worked. And because I had done it last year, I sort of knew when I was pre-riding what to go look for and find the places that had caused me problems last year. Typically came out here to find this because I blew past it last year. The more you can pre-ride, the better. That said, it is 106 miles, so I think pre-riding all of it was not super realistic. There were some big things that were helpful, this being the second time I had done it. That was probably the element that I underestimated the most when I was sort of thinking have I gotten enough faster to do this? And MACKY kind of kept saying that. He was like, oh, you're just going to go faster because it's the second time. I'm like, well, why would I just go faster because it's the second time?
Could I please hear you say that?
I didn't trust you and you were right.
Thank you.
I think the hard thing with a race like Marji Gesick is going into it, I was getting so many conflicting opinions on how this was going to go for me. We had people commenting saying, you'll be lucky to do this in under 17 hours. Just try to finish. Don't go hard. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do. I was conservative in ways that I didn't really realize how conservative I was until I wasn't doing that this year. Worried about being off course, being worried about what was coming in the last 30 miles or so. I didn't understand the token system. There was a lot of buzz about how it was designed or how this race is kind of designed to break you or make you quit or make it hard to figure out how to get the tokens. And in reality, that was not the experience that I had. It was pretty clear when there was a token.
The tokens, there's a sign maybe 100 feet before that says token ahead. And it's like a big orange sign on the side of the trail. And then when you get to the token, it is on the side, or when you get to the jack-o'-lantern that has the tokens in it, it is on the side of the trail and it says stop and get a token. So like you can miss it, like Sid said, especially at night when it's dark, like it's much easier to miss, but it's not like they're hiding them in the woods off the trail. Like they are on the trail, they want you to see the tokens. The tokens are there to make sure people don't cheat. And if the token bucket is empty, the token bucket is empty. You don't pick up a token. That's okay.
But it's not going to be, a riddle. I was completely convinced last year that there were like lyrics to a song we were supposed to memorize or like the answer to a riddle. I didn't think about the tokens at all this time. I didn't think about being off course at all. I do think it was very helpful to be with Kait and Julie for most of the race because all three of us are not going to ride past a token. Like all three of us are not going to ride off course. I also think just like having done it before, like seeing how well marked it was. The Koros Dura computer that I was using this year did really, really, really well with the navigation.
It has a high accuracy mode where instead of like switching between different satellite systems, you turn both of them on, so it uses them both simultaneously, and it uses a little bit more battery, but the battery is so good that doesn't matter.
The battery is so good that I haven't charged it since. I charged it the night before Marji Gesick, and I have not charged it since then.
So the battery is good enough that you can run it high accuracy mode and not have any worry about the battery dying. And you never had any issues of it like thinking you were somewhere else on the course and giving you like weird numbers.
Yeah, and last year I was using the iGPS computer, which is still a great computer, but I did have several spots on that course where it got confused and I thought I was at a later part of the course because they're so close together, or it thought I was off course, which the off course one that I had could have been an issue with the GPS track, so I'm not going to blame that on the computer, but like those really threw me off last year. I heard so many stories at the finish line of people whose GPS computers died before the finish. If you were going to spend any money for Marji Gesick, like get a computer that has enough battery life and that does well with navigation. Like that will save you more time in this race than any of the bike changes that we talked about.
Yeah.
By far. Like I cannot believe how many people were like, oh, my computer died, and then I was like, then I was lost in the last 30 miles and it was dark, and I'm like, don't do that to yourself. Yeah. Okay. The other thing we want to talk about in this kind of pre-race section is the mental preparation for this race. A lot of this was similar to what I did last year in terms of visualization and just kind of working on my mental strength as a whole for all bike racing. There were a few specific things for this race that were challenging just because of the buckle time. When I signed up for this race, and it took me a bit to sign up for this race, I did not commit immediately after the race last year. And part of that was because I knew as soon as I signed up that everyone would be like, you're going back and you're trying to get the buckle and da-da-da-da, and that would be kind of a lot of pressure for something that I felt was at least partially out of my control. What I was worried about was dedicating an entire year to this project and then having it rain 2 inches the day before the race. I could put all this energy into it and it could then be completely impossible. I had to really think that through before I committed to it and decide that I was doing this for the right reasons. I like 100-mile races. I like the challenge. I like the suffering. I like to see what I can do in a day, and it's really about that versus time or a buckle. And I think that was a healthy mindset for this race because I do think it would have been easy to be in a place of like buckle or bust, and I wasn't in that place.
Yeah, you basically committed to racing as well as you could and doing as well as you could, whether or not that was a buckle time.
Yeah. I was willing to commit that I was going to try. Like I'm not going to tell you like, yeah, I got this, but I will say like I'm willing to go really hard and be super prepared and like see what happens. There was definitely an element for me dealing with and reckoning with other people's perceptions of this race or this effort, because I kind of heard from a lot of people in like comments or just people we talked to of this kind of feeling of like, man, it'd be so hard if you did 12 hours in 1 second. As humans, we have a really big fear of the near miss, maybe more than the far miss. Because I think, if you have a terrible day, like there's always some excuse, right? Or reason happens in bike racing. Like you get a flat tire, you hurt yourself, the weather's terrible, right? And then you can always sort of, envision like, oh, if everything had gone perfect, maybe I would have done it. I think what can be really mentally scary is what if everything goes perfect and I miss by like a minute? I definitely took some time to reframe that as like, okay, that's still this massive improvement from last year. 12:01 is like a very good time on this course. I wanted to make sure I wasn't afraid of that, because I knew if I was more afraid of 12 hours and 1 second than I was of 12 hours and 15 minutes, that I would give up too early. I did a lot of work to make sure I wasn't looking for an excuse or a pressure release valve. I think that can be easy to do in a race like this, because a lot is going to happen in 12 hours. And if you are looking for a softer landing, you will find it.
Yeah, if you're looking for a reason why it didn't work, you can find that. I mean, for you, it could have been that crash you had like 2 hours in.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I want to be clear, I didn't hurt myself.
Yeah.
So I have absolutely no judgment of anyone who pulls out of a race when they have legitimately hurt themselves. That said, I think it can be very easy to have a crash that kind of shakes you up, to let that mentally knock you off your game, or to be stressed because you were with the people you wanted to be racing with and you aren't because you crashed. I mean, I have 10 years of experience of crashing in bike races. I was mentally prepared to get back up and not panic and try to catch up too quickly. That's the other way you can really do some damage. They throttled back a little bit because we were in this together, which I hugely appreciate. I think I would have been able to claw back on regardless. It just would have taken a little longer. And we also got into like that Pine Knob section, which got pretty congested anyway. So I was kind of able to like see the kind of crowd they were in and be like, this is going to come out in a wash. I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing. I'm not going to go too hard right now. I'm not going to freak out, and I'm going to forget about this very soon, which I did.
Except for then your pack hose came disconnected and then you couldn't drink water.
I could have been like, oh, I had to stop and fix this, or oh, I didn't drink any water. So that was a moment. For me, it's very helpful when I'm worrying about something happening to kind of let that play out and be like, okay, so that happens. How do you react? And that kind of takes the power out of it. And then I think this race was very telling to me in that I had a very good day, minus the crash. And I had 10 minutes of buffer. So I could have gotten a flat and still buckled. If I had messed something up on my bike when I crashed, I absolutely had time to get a multi-tool out and fix that. Which is a good reminder, because I think had those things happened, it would have been very easy to be like, whoop, game over. Yeah. But I had time. It's a 12-hour race, hopefully a smidge less. You are not gonna have a perfect day. This was pretty darn close. But at the same time, like, people got in my way early on. Someone crashed in front of me on top of the world, and I luckily didn't run them over. I crashed. My pack hose came disconnected. MACKY missed the feed at one point. At some point, I whacked my pinky finger on a tree, and it was bleeding. All of those things happened, and I still had a really good day. If I had let any of those things make me mentally spiral, maybe it would have ended differently. Let's talk about what went differently during the race. The big one was having more aid stops. Last year, my parents supported both of us. MACKY, obviously quite a bit faster than me, so we would be pretty far apart, so they could only be in 3 different places without missing one of us. So this year, because I was the only one racing, MACKY and my parents were able to be in 7 different spots on course, which meant A, I could carry a lot less stuff, and B, that they would be available to help if something went wrong, which luckily I didn't need. I only ever had a liter there was one section where I had 1.5 liters of water on my back. Usually only was carrying 1 bottle. Again, I think there was one section where I had 2. that was definitely helpful. I mean, that's just cutting weight, basically.
Yeah. Every pound of weight that you are not carrying on your bicycle will allow you to go faster. It's not a huge amount, but once again, all those little things adding up. The other thing that I think helped a lot was pack swaps. Whereas last year, we each only had one pack, and so we would stop at the aid station and like refill the hydration pack. Did I even wear a pack?
You did. I think we had extra hydration bladders, so we just swapped the bladder, but that still takes a little bit of time.
Yeah.
I also swapped a camera battery at one point, and honestly just futzed around a little bit.
Coffee?
Yes.
I had 10 minutes of stop time in 2024. I didn't really think I could reduce that much.
We thought we could get it down to like 4 minutes of stop time, 4 to 5. So that's like 5 or 6 minutes less.
48 seconds, you guys. That was the stop time that I had at aid stations. Obviously, there's a little bit more stop time to pick up tokens and stuff.
Yeah, ladies. Thanks, Mom. Good on ya.
Nice
Good
job.
girls, let's go! Yeah.
Take that. You're looking great. Nice job, Sid. Go, go, go.
The other thing that I found interesting was that we had more support locations, but that led to less stops.
I was worried
Less
about
stop
that,
time.
actually. I was like, if I'm seeing you every hour and a half, am I going to stop more? Because that's what always happens to me in these lap races is you go to the pit and you stop and snack and da-da-da. And I was just pretty committed to not doing that. And so it worked out. But I think you do need to be committed to not stopping. The other change that I made from last year to this year was eating more calories. Last year, I'm pretty sure my average was a little bit over 60 grams of carbs an hour. I did not follow my fueling plan last year. I had a plan and then I didn't do it and I ate random stuff on course, which kept me going. A pickle and a bratwurst. I was also doing things I had never done before in the race. Some of which worked and some of which didn't. And I know you're not supposed to do that, but I do it all the time. And I did it this time too, and it worked.
What did you do?
The tortilla roll. I had good instincts with that one, that was what I needed. This year I ended up around 84 grams of carbs an hour. It's a pretty significant increase. I also did do a caffeine gel towards the end of the race, which I had not done last year. A little bit under 8 bottles of Scratch high carb, 2.5 Scratch bars, 3 of the salted carbs gels, 4 passion fruit never second gels, and 1 espresso never second gel, and then 1 tortilla with peanut butter and honey that was, I got a half at 2 different points. And then I had meat sticks because that worked really well for me last year, and at the 12-hour, I didn't want them this year. I think that's just because it was less hot and I wasn't sweating as much. Also, several handfuls of Sour Patch Kids, all of which equaled out to 84 grams of carbs an hour. I think I was actually sitting closer to 90 until the final section where I just was starting to have a little bit of trouble. And about 575 milligrams of sodium an hour, which is lower than I did last year, but it was not as hot. And 7.3 liters of water. And no, I didn't have to pee during the race. That's the most common question on Instagram.
Yeah.
The last thing that we need to talk about in this segment is pacing. Because last year I thought I paced really well. This year I took off 40 minutes in the second half of the race from the time that I had done last year. In the first half of the race, we had only gone 27 minutes faster than I did last year, which was stressing Mackie out.
Maybe 5 minutes behind what she had originally estimated.
5 or 6 minutes behind buckle time.
They're still maybe 5 minutes behind Sid's original estimate. Still gonna be really, really tight.
Because when I had made my time splits for this, I guess I thought I would be like the same amount faster all day. Mm-hmm. And that was how it would have to be because there's this inevitable decline towards the end.
We looked at your time for different segments last year, and you said, I think I can go between 5 and 10 minutes faster per segment, which like that seems like to me, that's a fairly good way of estimating
Yeah.
like how much faster you'll go is like, you kind of say, this is what I did last year. And assuming that you aren't like, oh, I bonked and sat down for 30 minutes in this section, which never happened. Assuming that hasn't happened, you say, okay, I'm going to go a little bit faster on each section throughout the course.
What's kind of remarkable about this entire experience is I really thought I had a good day last year. Like I did have a good day. Now I know how much better of a day I'm capable of having. And part of that was definitely pacing. I think a lot of credit for this goes to Kait. She knows how to pace for a 12-hour event. And we were about 3 hours in and she was kind of like, this is the pace we need to do. And she kind of slowed down a little bit. And I was definitely like, I don't know, I could definitely go faster now. Like, is it a use it or lose it thing? And I think I was a bit nervous about that, but I also was willing to trust her because she knows what she's doing. I never would have predicted how fast we did that second half. Part of that is because I did the second half of the race only 10 minutes slower than MACKY did in 2024. A race that's 5 hours and 18 minutes long for you, what would you expect me to do that if that's like the whole race?
It'd be like an hour 15 slower.
Right.
So it'd be like 6.5.
Yeah.
And you were how much slower?
10
minutes? Yeah.
MACKY had told me, he was like, I bonked, like I didn't feel good.
Yeah.
Like
slowed down.
it wasn't his best, but at the same time, usually even his not best is still 20% faster than me. So like that was really hard to conceptualize, like when I was doing the splits of like how close to your time I was going to have to be. And I think that was hard for me when we're going into that final section and Kait was like, we got this, we're 10 minutes ahead of pace. I'm like, I have to go so much faster than I did last year. But the final Ramba section, I took off, I think 21 minutes from my time.
Hour and a half.
2:56 last year and 2:35 this year. That is what I've trained for this year, is that fatigue resistance. And I think the funny thing is I felt like I was going so slow at parts of that. And it is a really slow section of trail. I was like, there's no way this is going to be enough faster than last year. Like I am crawling. And then it was 21 minutes faster. A testament to the training and the fitness gain, a testament to Kait's pacing this perfectly. And I think also better nutrition. I think I didn't realize how much I was fading last year. I think I was not eating enough last year. Yeah, I averaged 10 watts higher this year than last year, which doesn't sound like a lot, but is about 7%. So that is about, obviously that's only the uphill non-walking parts. Yeah. So yeah, so I'm really happy with that. I don't know what else. It's going to take me a year to edit. The end.
The end. I'm gonna edit that out. Take that.
Bold of you to assume you're going to edit this video. Okay, so the first... basically...
You can say basically, you just can't say basically 3 times in one sentence.
Trying to eliminate the word basically from that vocabulary. The blooper section on this is going to be... I don't know what my problem is today. You don't want to put too much... Stock. Too much stock. Why does it sound like S-T-A-L-K? I'm trying to say S.
Stock.
We always try to encourage people to not put too much stock.